This is no place for discussion. Let us return below, Daoist Xie said calmly. With a sweep of his sleeve, a gentle force wrapped around Han Li, and in the blink of an eye, he was transported back into the underground palace. Within the Crystal Palace, the other golden Daoist Xie had already awakened. Standing beside it were two more humanoid puppets, identical in appearance, yet utterly different in aura. One pitch black, the other pure white. The black puppet glared at Daoist Xie with undisguised killing intent, while the white puppet wore a warm, benevolent smile that made it seem approachable. Han Li looked between Daoist Xie and the three puppets, confusion written on his face. The golden puppet merely glanced once at Daoist Xie before looking away. The black puppet sneered coldly. You may have survived your heavenly Dao tribulation, but I will still kill you one day and take your place. The white puppet, in contrast, smiled gently. Congratulations, fellow Daoist. Why have you summoned us? Daoist Xie issued his orders without hesitation. To the black puppet, he instructed it to head to Puppet City and inform Sha Xin that he had emerged from seclusion. Though unwilling, the black puppet complied and departed. Turning to the white puppet, Daoist Xie ordered it to lift the spatial restrictions around the Great Ruins and guide all of Puppet City's inhabitants here. The white puppet bowed and left at once. Finally, he instructed the golden puppet to prepare for the opening of a spatial passage using the essential power of the Skelptia spatial domain. So that Han Li could return to the Holy Realm, the golden puppet nodded and departed as well. Han Li watched all this with keen interest. Daoist Xie noticed his curiosity and invited him to sit. Han Li did not hide his question. These puppets clearly possessed sentience. What were they? With a faint smile, Daoist Xie asked if Han Li already had a guess. Han Li chuckled and spoke frankly, suggesting they might be connected to the three corpse souls Daoist Xie had severed. Daoist Xie confirmed it. He had sealed his three corpse souls into these puppets. Han Li expressed his admiration. The three corpse souls were a deadly flaw for great encompassment cultivators, too dangerous to keep, yet risky to destroy. That was why Heavenly Court cultivators sealed them into the Grey Realm. Daoist Xie's method of binding them into puppets and forcing them into service was truly ingenious. Daoist Xie explained that only his deep mastery of the laws of puppetry allowed him to keep such dangerous entities at his side. With that clarified, Han Li steered the conversation back to the matter at hand. Daoist Xie then revealed his past. He was tied to the Night Sun Empire. He was the younger brother of the devilish monarch Shi Kongyu and the uncle of Shi Chuangkong. This revelation shocked Han Li. Daoist Xie explained that they had once competed for the throne. He lost, and Shi Kongyu stripped him of the spatial laws he had painstakingly cultivated. With help from others, he fled into the Skelptia spatial domain. Though outwardly calm, Han Li was inwardly shaken by this history. Shi Kongyu had not shown mercy, but the Skelptia spatial domain was a special place. Anyone entering it would have their cultivation suppressed, and cultivators at or above the great encompassment stage could not enter at all. That was how Daoist survived. When Han Li questioned how even Shi Kongyu was restrained, Daoist Xie explained that the domain was created by an ancient Dao ancestor. The restriction was so forceful that it damaged the balance of the great Dao, turning the region into the desolation it was now. Han Li gazed around in awe. Such law power, one that permanently altered an entire world, was far beyond his current comprehension. Daoist Xie reassured him that with his aptitude, he would one day reach such heights. Han Li then asked how Daoist Xie could enter this place and still ascend to Dao Ancestor. Daoist Xie explained that after losing his law powers, his cultivation dropped to the high zenith stage, allowing him entry. Moreover, he had inherited the ancient Dao ancestor's legacy, becoming half-master of the Skelptia spatial domain, exempt from its rules. As for becoming a puppet and traveling to the spirit realm, Daoist Xie recounted how he shifted from spatial laws to puppetry, the Dao ancestor's true legacy. Gifted in this path, he reached great encompassment and severed two corpse souls. Yet, during the severing of the final one, he was betrayed by Yi Kuai, allowing Shi Kongyu to intervene. His physical body perished, forcing him to seal his soul and memories into the golden crab puppet and cast it into a lower realm, awaiting resurrection. Having heard everything, Han Li asked directly what Daoist Xie required of him. Daoist Xie admitted that even as a Dao ancestor, his chances against Shi Kongyu were slim. He needed allies. When Han Li realized Daoist Xie wished to enlist him, he was startled. He protested that he was merely a high zenith cultivator of little help. Daoist Xie smiled, praising Han Li's potential. With so many acupoints opened, Han Li's cultivation would surge once he left this place. Daoist Xie was certain he would not need to wait long before Han Li stood as his equal. Han Li hesitated. Though close to Daoist Xie, he had already fulfilled his promise, and entangling himself in a Dao ancestor's vendetta could mean death. Sensing this, Daoist Xie reassured him he did not demand immediate action, only that Han Li return when he had sufficient strength. This was not without reward. As a token of sincerity, Daoist Xie produced a jade vial and offered it to Han Li. Han Li accepted the jade vial and removed the stopper. Within it, a sphere of white radiance slowly revolved, pulsing like a living heart. At its core lay a pale pill, speckled with countless motes of light, releasing surges of vast vitality. The aura it exuded closely resembled Daoist Xie's own essence. "This is a true profound pill," Daoist Xie explained calmly. "I refined it using my own essential energy along with many precious materials. It contains a great quantity of true profound essence, enough to support your future advance to the great encompassment stage." Han Li was struck dumb, then overjoyed. He had long known from ancient scriptures that true profound essence was indispensable for breaking through to great encompassment. One not only had to open 360 immortal acupoints, but also temper and transform the soul into a great encompassment true soul, a process that demanded this rare essence. Such essence was said to exist only beyond heavenly astral winds, in the loftiest extra realm reaches of heaven and earth. Only then did Han Li truly understand why Shi Jianfeng had risked entering the Scalptia spatial domain. Offering a solemn bow, Han Li thanked Daoist Xie and vowed that he would not accept such a treasure without repayment, promising future assistance once his strength grew. Daoist Xie smiled, saying the pill alone could never repay Han Li's past deeds, and that Han Li was free to call on him at any time. Seizing the moment, Han Li requested help with Weeping Soul. Daoist Xie readily agreed. With a flick of his finger, golden light sank into Han Li's body, forming a glowing sphere in his dantian. The oppressive spatial force vanished, his immortal power circulation resumed, and he opened the flower branch domain. They soon arrived at the bamboo pavilion. Weeping Soul lay upon the upper floor, her body etched with black ceiling patterns placed long ago by Han Li, using Daoist Xie's technique. After examining her closely, Daoist Xie's expression darkened, causing Han Li's heart to sink. Black light spread from Daoist Xie's fingertip into her glabella, making her tremble as if waking, only to fall still again. A second attempt yielded the same result. Her condition, Daoist Xie explained gravely, stemmed from an extremely formidable law power that caused her soul to dissipate continuously. He could only stabilize her, not cure her. Though despair crept into Han Li's heart, Daoist Xie reassured him that Dao ancestors were not omnipotent. His puppetry laws were ill-suited for healing, but another existed who could help. The Grand Priest spoken of by Shi Chuankong, a master of soul laws. Hope rekindled in Han Li's eyes, even as he realized the path ahead would pit him against the Night Sun Empire if necessary. When he asked about returning to the Devil Realm, Daoist Xie explained preparations were needed, and that others would share the passage. Requiring about half a year, they parted ways soon after. Daoist Xie entered a hidden chamber, lit by a single oil lamp, where a hazy black figure awaited. After words of congratulations and gratitude, Daoist Xie spoke of his past failure and rebirth through puppetry, crediting the figure's guidance. The figure dismissed thanks and instead confirmed their long-standing agreement regarding Shi Kongyu. Daoist Xie's voice turned cold, as he vowed vengeance, though the figure urged patience. Before leaving, the figure conveyed a final request in secret, prompting a subtle change in Daoist Xie's expression. Meanwhile, Han Li sat in meditation. The golden sphere within his dantian brimmed with immortal power. After more than 1,000 years, he once again freely circulated his energy. His time law powers awakened, the mantra-treasured axis manifesting behind him. One by one, his time attribute treasures appeared, circling him beyond his control. Time Law threads surged forth, forming a revolving golden ring that absorbed his power and expanded in dazzling light. Suddenly, the heaven-controlling vial flew out, blazing like a green sun. The golden ring shrank and fused with its mouth. Instantly, terrifying Time Law power erupted as the vial swelled, green runes churning within. A thick beam of emerald light shot forth into the void ahead, vanishing into space. The space ahead shattered without warning, countless translucent rays bursting forth and weaving together into a vast, glass-like wall upon which innumerable scenes flickered in rapid succession. In the next instant, a colossal vortex opened upon that wall, unleashing a fearsome suction that engulfed Han Li entirely. By now, Han Li was long accustomed to such occurrences. He did not resist, allowing the pulling force to lift his body from the ground. Yet at that very moment, the golden sphere within his dantian abruptly extinguished, his immortal spiritual power freezing as if sealed. The vortex's suction weakened sharply, and his body stalled midair before crashing back down. Though his flesh fell, his soul was torn free and drawn into the vortex, his consciousness plunging into darkness. When awareness returned, Han Li found himself beside the immense river of time. It flowed as it always had, composed of countless drifting orbs of light, no different from his previous encounters. His form was now purely spiritual, hovering silently beside the river. What exactly is this place? Rather than enter any of the light orbs, Han Li turned and flew upstream, intent on uncovering the truth of this realm. In his spiritual state, his movement was light as drifting mist, yet painfully slow. The surroundings were desolate and unchanging, devoid of sun or night, making time itself impossible to gauge. By his estimation, 7 or 8 days passed with no change whatsoever. Irritation crept into his heart, and even after 2 more days of perseverance, the river remained the same. There's no telling how vast this place is. Perhaps it's nothing but an illusion. Resolving not to waste more effort, Han Li halted and turned back toward the river. Just as he was about to approach, a small yellow cloud several feet wide suddenly appeared above him. Within it floated a pair of tiny black eyes that fixed upon him. At a glance, Han Li recognized it as the vile spirit. The eyes blinked, quietly observing him. "Do you need something from me?" Han Li asked, brows knitting slightly. Before the last syllable faded, the yellow cloud flared brightly, and a streak of translucent yellow light shot forth. It was impossibly fast. Han Li had no chance to evade as it merged into his soul, spreading a gentle warmth in an instant. Alarm surged through him, but before he could question anything, the cloud vanished as if it had never existed. After staring at the empty space for a while, Han Li carefully examined his soul. Finding no abnormalities or discomfort, he could only set the matter aside for now and turn his attention to the river of time. Through countless transmigrations, he had already grasped its nature. Each orb of light represented a moment from the past, and by entering one, he could return to that point in time. The heaven-controlling vial's ability to traverse time was unheard of. If fully mastered, its value would be beyond measure. At the very least, it would make investigating past events vastly easier. Yet the river held innumerable orbs with no clear order, making each transmigration a gamble of fate. If only I could choose the exact moment to return to, then I could verify Daoist Xie's story. Now that Daoist Xie had ascended to Dao Ancestor, an invisible distance had formed between them. His explanation was flawless on the surface, yet Han Li could not shake the feeling that something had been concealed. At that moment, the river of time roiled violently. Dozens of light orbs shot out from all directions, stopping before Han Li. His eyes gleamed as he studied them, quickly realizing they all depicted the same place, a magnificent palace. This palace, it looks familiar. Recognition flashed through his mind. It stood near the Myriad Opportunity Palace, and the scenes within showed a fierce battle unfolding there. After brief contemplation, Han Li stepped toward the largest orb. A tremendous suction erupted, and darkness claimed him once more. When Han Li awoke again, he found himself inhabiting the body of a young man clad in black armor. Lying amid the ruins of a partially collapsed palace, a bloody hole pierced the man's dantian. Above his head hovered a semi-transparent golden wheel etched with over 1,000 flickering time Dao runes. Deafening battle sounds echoed from nearby. Han Li did not rise immediately. Instead, he probed the host's residual memories, which flooded into his mind like a raging tide. The man was named Wu Xuan. A fugitive exiled to the Scalptia spatial domain, he had later sworn allegiance to Shi Kongji and, due to his strength, became one of Daoist Xie's personal guards. Over a century ago, Daoist Xie had entered seclusion to sever his final corpse soul, sealing the entire Scalptia spatial domain. Yet on this very day, a massive enemy force had breached the domain and stormed toward the Myriad Opportunity Palace. As Han Li absorbed these memories, curiosity flickered in his eyes. He had long wanted to witness the events that led to Daoist Xi's failed Dao ancestor breakthrough. Had the River of Time answered that desire? Did this mean he could now guide his own transmigrations? The more he pondered it, the less it seemed like coincidence. Somehow, he had gained partial control over the River of Time. Perhaps due to the vile spirit, perhaps for another reason entirely. Regardless, it was excellent news. Han Li rose swiftly and moved to the palace entrance. High above, puppets and cultivators clashed in brutal combat. One side wore black armor like Wu Xuan's, while the opposing forces were clad in dark purple armor, instantly recognizable as the troops of the Night Sun Empire. These cultivators were tall and imposing, green-skinned with protruding tusks, few in number yet terrifyingly powerful. Though the Scalptia spatial domain held numerical superiority, they were being pushed back relentlessly. Nightmare Dragon Guards? So, it really was Shi Kongyu behind this. Shi Chuankong had once described these secret legions to him. Elite bodily refinement cultivators under the devilish monarch's direct command. Each guard before him rivaled a cultivator with 150 profound acupoints opened. Han Li shifted his gaze farther ahead. 4 9-story pagodas stood at the corners of a white jade plaza, and at its center loomed the Myriad Opportunity Palace, where the fiercest fighting raged. After a moment's thought, Han Li adjusted his armor to hide the wound in his abdomen, activated the Myriad Acupoint Tranquility technique, and rushed forward. At first, he slipped through unnoticed. But as he drew closer to the palace, encounters multiplied, and his concealment was finally broken. A Nightmare Dragon Guard wielding a saber lunged at him with blinding speed. Wu Xuan's cultivation was roughly comparable, but Han Li's combat experience far surpassed his host's. He swayed, splitting into 9 identical afterimages that slipped past the strike, then reformed behind the guard and surged onward. The guard tried to pursue, only to be intercepted by another Scalptia cultivator. With his cover already blown, Han Li abandoned stealth, driving the body's power to its limits. Near the palace, the battle was chaos incarnate. Han Li ducked behind a ruined wall and looked toward the entrance. Leading the defenders was Xia Xin, commanding 5 puppets as she fought Ikwai, clad in azure armor. At this time, Ikwai possessed 600 to 700 profound acupoints, little changed from years past. "How dare you collude with Shi Kongyu against our master? You will never leave alive," Xia Xin roared. "Face reality, Xia Xin," Ikwai replied calmly. "Shi Kongji's death is sealed. Swear fealty to his majesty, and your talents will be welcomed." "Absurd." Xia Xin snorted coldly, her puppets surging forward in a violent storm of attacks. A chill sneer curved across Ikwai's face as his sword swept through the air, sword chi roaring forth to ward off every puppet's strike. The surging chi formed an invisible net, hemming in Xia Xin and the 5 puppets, denying them any path of retreat. Nearby, the Nightmare Dragon Guards had already formed a tight defensive array, their presence like iron walls as they desperately barred the Scalptia spatial domain cultivators from advancing into the Myriad Opportunity Palace. After a swift appraisal of the battlefield, Han Li burst from concealment and shot toward the palace entrance like an arrow loosed from the bow. 3 Nightmare Dragon Guards instantly detected him and slashed out together, their blades flashing as they attempted to block his path. Han Li neither slowed nor dodged. Instead, he surged forward even faster, his sleeve snapping as an azure whip shot forth, coiling like a living spirit serpent. In a blink, it wrapped around the 3 weapons, its restraining power immediately slowing their descent. The whip had been taken from a fallen Nightmare Dragon Guard earlier, and its suppressive force proved effective. At the same time, Han Li's skin flushed an unnatural crimson as he drew deeply upon the body's latent potential. In a red blur, he slipped past the 3 guards and continued his charge toward the palace, his intent unwavering. He had resolved to avoid all needless entanglements. His sole aim was to enter the Myriad Opportunity Palace at any cost. Just then, a towering dark purple figure materialized directly before him. This nightmare dragon guard was far larger than the rest, and a golden dragon head emblazoned upon his breastplate marked him as a commander. With a sweeping motion of his arm, black light burst outward, surging from all directions to engulf Han Li. His speed plummeted at once, as though unseen roots had seized his limbs. Insignificant vermin should know their place, the commander snarled, hurling a devastating punch. Black wind howled from his fist, yet as it swept across Han Li's form, Han Li vanished, dispersed as though blown away entirely. The commander froze in shock. "He's above you," Ikwai shouted sharply. The commander snapped his head up to see Han Li streaking through the air dozens of feet overhead. The crimson hue of his skin had deepened further, and his speed had climbed to terrifying heights. There was no longer any chance to intercept him. Since when had Wu Xuan become this powerful? Sha Xin also witnessed the scene, surprise flickering briefly in her eyes. "Useless!" Ikwai roared, rage surging as nearly 100 profound acupoints ignited along his arm. In the next instant, his sword vanished from his grasp, transforming into a black shadow that appeared behind Han Li and thrust toward him with lethal speed. Han Li's expression tightened as he twisted aside, yet the sword was too fast to evade completely, its tip bearing down on his left arm. Even so, he made no move to defend, continuing forward without hesitation, ignoring the imminent strike. At that moment, a golden blur flashed in from the side. A golden eagle puppet appeared behind Han Li, its talons clamping down on Ikwai's sword. The blade tore effortlessly through the talons and pierced straight through the puppet's chest, but its momentum ended there, halted by the sacrifice. Han Li was momentarily startled, but he did not pause. With the final obstruction removed, he rushed straight into the Myriad Opportunity Palace. Ikwai whirled on Sha Xin, eyes blazing with fury, only to meet her triumphant smile. "Send men after him. He must not be allowed to interfere with His Majesty." Ikwai barked. His authority was absolute. 4 nightmare dragon guards immediately gave chase, while the commander who had failed to stop Han Li charged toward the palace entrance, face twisted with wrath. Yet Sha Xin had already formed a rapid series of seals. Twin beams of golden light burst from the golden eagle puppet's eyes and vanished into the stone wall beside the gates. With a thunderous boom, the palace doors slammed shut. The pursuers crashed against the sealed gates, but the doors did not so much as tremble. Ikwai glared at Sha Xin with murderous intent. "The gates are sealed by Master's own restriction," Sha Xin sneered. "None of you will ever force your way through." Han Li paused briefly as the gates closed behind him, then swiftly turned his focus inward. The interior of the Myriad Opportunity Palace was littered with shattered furnishings and broken puppets, unmistakable traces of a recent, violent battle. No living figures remained, yet the hall was filled with a sweet, crimson mist. The mist was strangely benign, even soothing, easing the strain on Han Li's body after his reckless exertion. Though surprised, he did not linger, instead rushing toward the rear of the palace. The familiar black stone chair still stood there. Han Li's eyes brightened as he seized it and twisted. A hidden passage yawned open behind the chair, revealing a stairway descending underground. Activating his myriad acupoint tranquility technique, he hurried downward, soon reaching the cavern entrance below. Beyond lay a vast underground cave, trembling violently as thunderous impacts echoed throughout. Creeping closer, Han Li peered inside and found the scene much as it would be many years later. A massive lake of blood churned below, but where the crystal coffin once rested stood a square crimson stone platform instead. 9 towering crimson jade pillars encircled the platform, their engraved patterns blazing as they formed a dense barrier of crimson light. Atop the platform, Daoist Xie sat cross-legged, golden radiance enveloping him. His eyes were shut, brow knotted in pain, body trembling as wisps of gray mist seeped from him and gathered above into a roiling cloud, already beginning to assume a humanoid shape. Beside the lake, a fierce battle raged. 2 figures were Daoist Xie's corpse soul puppets, locked in combat against a middle-aged man clad in purple armor. Han Li recognized the opponent as Shi Kongyu, yet immediately realized it was only a puppet. Given the domain's restrictions, the true Shi Kongyu could never enter in person. All three moved at blinding speed, their clashes detonating with deafening booms that shook the cavern. Yet powerful restrictions preserved the cave from destruction. The blood lake roiled violently, spewing thick crimson mist that filled the underground space. Shi Kongyu's purple puppet was terrifying, lightning arcing across its body as it streaked through the air like a thunder dragon, tearing spatial rifts in its wake. The two corpse soul puppets were no less fearsome, unrestrained by the domain and freely wielding devilish chi and law powers. Neither side gained ground, and no decisive outcome seemed near. After another violent exchange, the combatants withdrew. The white Daoist Xie spoke calmly, urging Shi Kongyu to end the pointless struggle and set aside old grudges, reminding him that the Heavenly Court was their true foe. Shi Kongyu answered only with a cold snort before vanishing. The white Daoist Xie's expression shifted as it darted aside. A lightning-wreathed fist erupted from the void, smashing into the space it had just vacated and blasting open a massive void. At the same instant, the black Daoist Xie appeared above Shi Kongyu, black saber in hand. As it slashed downward, countless saber projections bloomed into a descending black lotus, sealing Shi Kongyu beneath its lethal shadow. Shi Kongyu showed not the slightest alarm at the black Daoist Xie's saber strike. With a roar like thunder, he answered with a punch, purple lightning bursting from his fists like a furious dragon. Fist and blade collided, shaking heaven and earth. Space itself groaned, fissures tearing open as if wounded, help, and both Shi Kongyu and the black Daoist Xie were hurled backward by the violent rebound. Yet before the echoes faded, the three were already clashing once more. From a distant hiding place, Han Li watched in silence, every detail etched into his mind. What unfolded before him was exactly as Daoist Xie had once described. The realization made Han Li's heart sink. Had Daoist Xie been deceiving him all along? He lifted his gaze to the axis projection above. Many of the time Dao runes had already gone dark. A thought surfaced in his mind. Perhaps it was time to leave. Remaining served little purpose. In this borrowed body, he could not aid Daoist Xie, and since Daoist Xie was destined to ascend as a Dao ancestor, this calamity might not even be misfortune. At that instant, a deafening crash resounded, and the battle abruptly ceased. Shi Kongyu shot backward, retreating to the mouth of the underground cave. Alarm flared in Han Li's chest. He immediately circulated the myriad acupoint tranquility technique to its limit, shrinking his presence as he concealed himself within shadow. Shi Kongyu made no move to pursue. Instead, a faint, inscrutable smile curved his lips. The two corpse soul puppets hesitated in confusion. The white Daoist Xie spoke calmly. "We are evenly matched. No matter how long this continues, there will be no victor. You should withdraw." "I knew long ago that defeating the two of you was nearly impossible," Shi Kongyu replied lightly. Han Li was startled. From those words, it was clear Shi Kongyu had never intended to win this fight. The prolonged clash hid another purpose entirely. The two puppets reached the same conclusion and lunged forward together. Shi Kongyu laughed aloud, ignoring them completely, as he drove his fist into his own chest. A fist-sized gray bone burst forth, etched with a black rune resembling a withered octopus. The moment the bone emerged, gray flames erupted around it. Within those flames, countless black runes writhed, forming a human face twisted with grief, rage, and boundless resentment. A chilling wave of law power surged outward. The suppressive forces of the Scalptia spatial domain weakened under its pressure, though they did not vanish outright. Han Li, standing closest, was struck first. An invisible force invaded his soul, leaving him dazed and unsteady. His soul dimmed as though coated in dust, while a surge of uncontrollable frustration rose within his heart. Illusions bloomed before his eyes, ominous signs of inner demon backlash. Nausea followed, so intense it felt as if his organs might spill forth. What kind of law was this? Han Li hastily circulated the spirit refinement technique, stabilizing his soul while severing the link to the possessed body. The two corpse soul puppets grimaced in pain as the foreign law swept over them. One cried out in shock, "Hex laws!" They rushed toward Daoist Xie at once, unleashing powerful law fluctuations to shield him and the Crimson Barrier. But they were a breath too late. The Hex law seeped into Daoist Xie's body. At that moment, Daoist Xie was wholly focused on severing his third corpse soul. Blood sprayed from his lips as the foreign power struck. The humanoid cloud above his head rippled violently, on the verge of collapse. Shi Kongyu threw back his head and laughed. So it is Hex Law, he declared. This baleful hexbone took time to awaken without devilish qi, but now that it has stirred, victory is assured. Shi Kongji, no matter what laws you cultivate, you are destined to be crushed beneath me. He spat a mouthful of blood essence onto the gray bone. The flames surged, and the twisted face within became terrifyingly clear. Hanli's expression changed. Suppressing the agony tearing at his soul, he fled upward with all his strength. He barely traveled any distance before an even stronger wave of Hex Law struck him. His soul felt as though it were shattering. He fell heavily, tumbling into the underground cave, body trembling as he clutched his head in unbearable pain. Shi Kongyu turned sharply at the sound. In that instant, a black-robed figure appeared from nothingness. Black mist veiled its face as it seized the gray bone and crushed it to powder. The gray flames exploded. Shockwaves and terrifying law power swept outward. The black-robed figure staggered, its mist scattering briefly to reveal part of its face, only for the darkness to conceal it again. Han Li caught that fleeting glimpse. His heart lurched as if struck by lightning. It was his own face. Before he could process the shock, the gray shockwaves engulfed him. A final, overwhelming surge of Hex Law tore into his soul. His consciousness shattered, vision plunging into darkness. After what felt like endless time, Han Li awoke within his true body. His soul still ached, but the pain was far lighter than before. Memories flooded back. He jolted upright, eyes wide with disbelief. Though he had seen only a fragment, he was certain that face had been his, undeniably his own. How could such a thing be? Disguise? Coincidence? Daoist Xie's trial had occurred long before Han Li's birth. Yet his instincts screamed that this was no accident. He remained seated, lost in stunned contemplation. Much later, a knock broke the silence. Han Li opened the door to find the white Daoist Xie puppet outside. Fellow Daoist Han, Sha Xin, and the others have arrived. Preparations for opening the spatial passage are complete. Please come to the main palace, it said kindly. Half a year already? Han Li exclaimed. Had he truly been unconscious that long? The puppet confirmed it. Han Li nodded, still disoriented. As it turned to leave, Han Li called out, Your name is White Spirit, correct? That name was bestowed by fellow Daoist Xie, it replied. Fellow Daoist White Spirit, Han Li asked casually, eyes sharp. Daoist Xie once told me Shi Kongyu attacked him during his first attempt to sever the three corpse souls. You were present then, weren't you? How did he survive that crisis? Did he receive outside help? The white Daoist Xie smiled gently as it listened.